Hello and welcome back. Ragpicker King is officially out. I have been so excited for this book to come out. I've been dying for a new Cassandra Clare book. In honor of this book coming out, I decided to reread Sword Cather, the first book. First of all, look how cute they look together. I really like this cover. It just heightens my excitement. Before I can dive into Ragpicker King, I wanted to make this video going through the things I liked about Sword Cather and this introduction to the universe, but I'm also going to make my predictions for the Ragpicker King. And I haven't even started Ragpicker King because I was waiting to film this video first. All of these predictions are completely from my head. I also have not consulted the internet or read fan theories because I wanted it to be purely my own thoughts and I didn't want to be influenced by anyone else. So these predictions that I'll make at the end of the video are purely just what I thought as I read Sword Cather. I jotted them down and these are my own little theories. I want to give you your spoiler warning right now for Sword Cather. This video contains spoilers for Sword Cather. I am going to talk about plot points in this book that I enjoyed. I'm just going to discuss really pivotal plot points in this, including full-on spoilers. So this is once again your warning. If you care about spoilers for Sword Cather, please leave this video, click off, whatever you want to do. You can't say I didn't warn you. I wanted to give more of a spoilery review so that I could kind of justify my predictions. So I will not actually be reviewing this in my February reading wrap up. Let's get into talking about Sword Cather. Right off the bat, I think Sword Cather starts in a fun, almost like poetic way. The first line of the entire series is, it began with a crime, the theft of a boy. First of all, I really like that start. The theft of a boy? What? I must keep reading. This is my second read of Sword Cather. I read it when it initially came out in 2023. I very rarely have time for rereads, but I wanted to go into Ragpicker King with a fresh knowledge and idea of what had happened. I am actually pleased to say that I remembered 95% of the plot points. There was one or two bits right at the end. I think I must have hurried the end of Sword Cather or read it maybe in almost like a frenzy to get it done from excitement to be reading a new Cassandra Clare book. That does happen to me sometimes. I do get overwhelmed kind of and so excited that I kind of speed read and clearly don't take it in as heavily as I should, whereas this time I got to really take my time since there was only a tiny time constraint. But anyway, I think that must have happened while I got to the end of Sword Cather because it was heating up a bit. I also looked back and I read it in like 3 days. It's 600 pages, so I was definitely absolutely sprinting through this book. The first time I read it. This time I took much more time to read it. I was really going over it with a magnifying glass to, you know, be chill first of all, but also to make sure I was looking at the finer plot points. The first thing I really enjoyed was the opening line, ironically. And it also made me kind of think, maybe would the series end with a crime, or it ended with something, the death of a boy. I thought that would be a really nice full circle. It felt very dramatic to me. So that was one of my kind of theories as I was reading. Obviously, Ragpicker King is not the last book in the series, so that's not relevant here. But I thought that would be kind of fun, or if there's some kind of callback to that opening line, that would be quite fun. I'm putting it into the universe. In case you forget, I'll give you a quick bang bullet points of the story. Sword Cather is about the royal family in Castellane. Connor Aurelian is the prince and obviously someday will be the king of Castellane. In order to keep Connor safe, back when he was a young boy, an orphan who looked pretty similar to him was chosen from the local orphanage and brought into the castle, given fancy clothes, cleaned, given an education. And this other boy, his name is Kel, was basically raised as a sword catcher. And it almost is exactly what it sounds like. he was raised and kind of groomed to be the person who stands between Connor, Prince Connor, and the sword. So the sword catcher. You get me? His whole duty in life is to die protecting Connor. They're raised almost as brothers, as close as brothers. Kell, the sword catcher, is not treated like Connor's brother by other people because he doesn't have actual royal blood. Connor and Kell are like this. They sleep in the same room, they go to the same classes, sword fighting, horse riding, because anything that Connor could do, Kell had to be able to do, and vice versa. Also, the thing about him being the sword catcher, Kell being a sword catcher, is that this is a big secret, because obviously, first of all, it's a bit sketchy, you know, raising a child in such a way, and also the assassins or the people who were trying to kill Connor in the first place would just kill Kell too. It's a way to ensure the bloodline keeps going, but also it is a secret. He is said to be Connor's cousin from a different country, Marikand. That's kind of his cover story. The bulk of the book happens while the two men are in their early 20s. I believe they are 23. Things start to kick off. There's definitely weird stuff happening in the country, kingdom, whatever. Tensions are quite high with other countries. One of those countries is Sarth and Malgassi. I believe those are the two big ones that are a bit iffy. So the story is starting. There's kind of Kell doing his best to keep Connor safe, and you can really see his dedication to the role. You have the two boys, Connor and Kell. Then we have it's not an entourage, but kind of an entourage on the hill. I hopefully will remember to stick a little map of Castellane up in here. Side note, I'm not a huge fan of this map. This is the map that came in the book, purely because I would like to see where the other countries are relative to Castellane. Like, this is just so focused on Castellane that I want a bit more. So you can see along the bottom is the hill. The hill is where all the rich people live. These rich families run charters. Each charter controls a certain good or service. I think it's mostly goods. So for example, we have the Alain women run the silk charter. So all sales of silk and stuff coming through the country is run by them, and they get the money from it, hence why they're so rich. So we also have we've an ink charter. We have, I think, a tree/paper charter, tea and coffee. The charters are kind of like famous houses, and there's 12, I believe. I might be wrong. This is just off the top of my head. All of these rich families live up on the hill, and I found it very funny that it's like real life celebrities. These are this world's celebrities in their gated community up on the hill. I like that, like, kind of comment on celebrity culture that we see with all of these rich people in their safe haven up on the hill. There was comments by the not rich, just the normal people down in the main area of Castellane. They're all like gossiping about these rich families, and they all know their business without actually knowing them at all. And honestly, that was just a great representation of what celebrity is like in our lives. I saw what Cassandra Clare was doing there, and I liked it. I thought that was done very well. Now I'm going to jump kind of sideways and talk about the salt. S-A-U-L-T, like vault, but salt. In this universe, there are a group of people called the Ashkari. Inspiration is drawn for the Ashkari from like religions, say. I really felt a deep connection to Judaism in here, and how the Ashkari were portrayed. Even some of the Ashkari language, they have their own language, was drawn from Hebrew words, and that is actually said in the acknowledgements by Cassandra Clare herself. And she worked with a lot of sensitivity readers and linguists to get the different languages, and she actually talks about where a lot of the language inspo comes from, and which is a really interesting thing to read at the back of the book. So I really like that. But yeah, so the Ashkari people are kind of people that don't have their own country. Aram, their country, was destroyed in a big battle thing that you learn in pieces throughout the book. They are the people who wait, and they disperse to different parts of the world, and as a part of this, they weren't really wanted in any one place. So the compromise was for them to live in a specific designated part of each country that they landed in, essentially. That is the salt. There are very strict rules about the Ashkari, like they cannot wear like their own clothes except for grey and blues that really marks them as Ashgar. They have to be back in the salt at nighttime. They're not allowed out past sunset. In general, they're not trusted by the other people, just the non-Ashgar, which they call the Malbusham? Don't fight me over pronunciation. They're made up words. The non-Ashkari don't trust them. It is all just a commentary on marginalized groups. One of our main characters, Lynn Castor, is a physician who is Ashkari. It really shows her struggles to be taken seriously as both a woman and a doctor. She has had the best results in her doctor's exams, and yet a lot of people still won't take her seriously. She has motivations like wanting to heal her friend Mariam. Mariam is also Ashkari, and Mariam is sick, like fatally sick. So Lynn's whole drive as a person is to help Mariam and to heal Mariam. We see a lot of Lynn, and I really like her character. She is hot-headed, but also just deevishly smart and just the best at her thing, which is healing people. She also uses a bit of magic. Something I meant to say is the Ashkari can use gematry. It is a type of magic using amulets and talismans. It is not full-blown magic because magic disappeared from the world previous to the book starting. Is that true? Not fully sure, because there are inklings of magic still in the book. Lynn's grandfather, Mayesh, is the king's counselor. He gives advice and stuff, and he is kind of the Ashkari representation up on the hill. Our three characters are kind of thrown together. Lynn and Connor, it looks like, are the combination, kind of enemies to lovers, but the thing is, I'm not feeling it that strongly yet. Hopefully it picks up and gets a bit better, because Cassandra Clare, if she can write one thing, it is romance. Her books are so good in that regard, and I think that's really what drew me in as a teenager, and now it's kept me around this long, obviously with the fun magic systems and the historical parts and the lore. Brilliant, but I always think her strong suit has been romance. And so I was a bit like, what's going on when it came to Lynn and Connor? I'm not feeling it as much, and what I think it is that is making it less exciting to me is that I don't think Lynn and Connor have had enough back and forth banter, if you will. I don't think they've had enough of the fun, playful side of enemies to lovers. I'm just kind of waiting for that to hit. Kel and Antonetta, that whole will they won't they has me. I'm rooting for them. I'm excited by them. I love to get to their interactions in the book. It's not like Cassandra has lost her way with romance. No, like she has compelling romantic story already in here that has my attention. I'm just waiting for Connor and Lynn, which arguably could be the main romance, to get there. I love the world. I love the world building. I love the magic. I love how much we're learning bit by bit, like in scraps about the Ashkari. I really enjoy Kel and Connor's dynamic. Kel specifically I really like, and of course Lynn. I'm less connected to Connor, but I think that's because I'm not in his head. We don't actually really get Connor point of view. We get Lynn and Kel is kind of how the story's told. So I think that's why Connor doesn't come through as compelling, I suppose, because I don't really know what he's thinking. So maybe that's it. Another character that I have to like shout out here is obviously the Ragpicker King. And both Lynn and Kel are now working with him. I don't want to say for, but with. And he is the king in the city, the criminal boss, mastermind guy. Obviously the second book is called The Ragpicker King, so he's clearly influential and important, and I am so excited to find out more about him and his story. And so on that note, we are going to jump in to my Ragpicker King bingo. These are my predictions, quote unquote. Disclaimer, I'm never that good at predictions. I just had thoughts and decided to put it on, well, not paper, but screen. None of these could be true. None of these could come to light at all. I am going to now supply you with evidence or reasons that I believe each of these things might happen. And it's just something fun. I love to make a bingo card for a new Cassandra Clare book. It's something my brother and I have always done prior to a new Cassandra Clare release. So I wanted to continue this tradition and share it with you. Coming in hot, number 1, I think the real identity of the Ragpicker King is the Maharam's son. Pause. The Maharam is like a priest, kind of. Think of him like a priest for the Ashkari people. He is kind of the internal governing body almost of the Salt. He has studied kind of scripture and he knows a lot about a bit of everything to do with the Ashkari. This Maharam has a son, but the son was banished a few years prior to the book starting. Like, we don't really know much about this son. I can't remember his name for the life of me. And I wasn't smart enough to take down the name as I was reading the book. But I had this thought the first time I read the book back in 2023. The son is brought up and then mentioned once or twice, and then there's no reason that he was mentioned, really. I think he is the Ragpicker King. First of all, Maharam's son was mentioned, but never, like, he's not been relevant yet, given it's just the first book, so he could become relevant later, but shh. 2, the Maharam's son was supposed to be, I think, about 16 when he was banished. Lynn, I believe, was a young girl when this happened, so like 9, 10. The Ragpicker King is described to be about 30, but it's hard to tell what age he is. It's kind of, both Kel and Lynn say that, and they make a note to say that he looks about 30, but they're not fully sure. Plus or minus 5 years, I think, would be fair enough. If you're unsure, maybe plus or minus 3 years. If Maharam's son was 16 and Lynn was, say, 10, that means there's 6 years in difference. Lynn is 23, 6 years, 29. That is plus or minus 3 years of 30. Okay, compelling. You must say that's compelling. The Ragpicker King has a soft spot for the Ashkari. He has this silver kind of, it's not sacrificial, that's not the word, sacred. He has this sacred silver bowl of the Ashkari people in his mansion that Lynn notes and sees and is upset that he has and is like fiddling with, because she's like, that's kind of important in my culture. Could you not do that? What if it's sacred in his culture too? Like I said, he has a soft spot for the Ashkari. Lynn, this was something she remembered happening. A criminal tried to rob her, and one of the Ragpicker King's criminals scared that criminal off and was like, compliments of the Ragpicker King. I think that is all quite compelling evidence. I think there's a possibility there. I'm pretty happy with that one. Watch me eat my words. My next prediction is, I think that the Ragpicker King and Merrin are going to have something going on. Merrin is the poisoner, and he's just described by like everyone as pretty, the pretty poisoner who's kind of spacey. He has his thing and knows nothing else. He is good at poisons. That's kind of it. Chemistry, if you will. The Ragpicker King definitely has a certain like soft spot for Merrin. That's the vibe I got. Kel kind of notes as he's watching an interaction when Merrin said something, he notes that Ragpicker King is a bit soft on him, like slightly, like ever so slightly, because remember, still a criminal mastermind and stuff. But I think that was like a Ragpicker King and Merrin. Next, I think Cass returns. Cass? Who's that? Cass was Kel's best friend at the orphanage. He is only in it for about 3 pages. He's a little boy that Kel played with when he was a little boy in the orphanage, and they used to play pirates together. I think maybe he could show up as a pirate, as a criminal, working for either Ragpicker King or the other big bad, potentially. I think that would be a fun little reference, just saying. Next, I have like 2 parallel predictions. So they're the same prediction but swap a name. At the end of Sword Cather, Lynn steps forward and declares herself as the goddess returned. If you've read the book, you know what that means. If not, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's to do with an Ashkari festival. Just know that lying about declaring yourself the goddess returned when you're not is like treason and grounds for exile. So when Lynn does this, it's all very dramatic. It's a whole thing. Anyway, my first prediction is that Lynn actually is the goddess returned. Evidence for this is such that she definitely has been using magic, not just gematry. So she definitely has a bit of magic wielding ability, and throughout the book she has a load of dreams about the goddess and what happened with the goddess and her lover at the time and how everything happened. That could have been a device for us to learn how everything happened, the story. or it could be like hints. I don't fully like this theory. I just said I'd put it on here. I think it's a bit obvious. Of course, one of the main characters is a goddess. I think it'd be less exciting if Lynn actually is the goddess returned. Do you know what I think would be exciting? If Mariam was actually the goddess returned. Mariam is the sick best friend of Lynn. Hear me out. I've pulled this out of nowhere kind of thing. But the original story about the goddess is that she was mortal once, could use her magic, do her stuff, and then when she died, she returned as a goddess. And then she appeared to the Ashgari and were like, oh, all right, I'll come back someday when you most need me. See you guys. And then she disappeared. What I think will happen is I think Mariam is going to die and return as the goddess, because the goddess was only a goddess after she died. I think that would be kind of interesting. As well, Mariam does note in the book that she much preferred when the goddess was mortal and like quite liked that half of the story. Of course you would, especially if you were the goddess. That's my preferred prediction, but I'm afraid that Lynn might end up being the actual one, so I've covered my ass with this one. But if I'm completely wrong, next is kind of my safe one, is that a love triangle will be introduced. Cassandra Clare loves a love triangle, and don't get me wrong, I love her love triangles. Nothing made me angrier and yearn more than that Mortal Instruments original love triangle. I just, ooh. Brilliant. There was a distinct lack of a love triangle in this book. Therefore, I reckon there's going to be some kind of love triangle introduced. That's a prediction based on my understanding of Cassandra Clare's writing. Next, I think someone will get a cat. Also a bit of a silly one. This is more trying to get into the head of the author. Cassandra Clare famously adores cats, and her cats are the cutest cats in the world. Like, they're super duper cute. I think someone's gonna get a cat. Maybe Marin. Maybe the Ragpicker King. Someone will get a cat. Come on, cat mention. Where's my cat representation? And finally, my last prediction is about the assassin right at the end of the book. You know, there's the banquet for the Sarthian delegation, I suppose, and they're like massacred. There was this awful massacre at the end of Sword Cather. The Sarthian princess, the little girl Louisa, was murdered by an assassin with a crossbolt. Kell chased this assassin out up onto the roof and was stunned to find that the way he described it, it seemed like the assassin was wearing like a morph suit. It was really odd. Couldn't see their face. Doesn't even have a clue what gender the person is. Like, can't even tell any attribute of this person. Their voice also hasn't a clue who this is. So there are actually zero crumbs as to who this person is. So of course I've made a prediction. I think the assassin is the Malgassi ambassador from the messy dinner. So there was a dinner about halfway through the book maybe, where Connor revealed that he was engaged to a Sarthian princess. And the Malgassi ambassador was at the table and went mental because Connor had been promised to the Malgassi princess before either of them were born. The ambassador was just very intimidating. Also, Malgassi seems to be like the bad guys a little bit, because they also, as a side note, hunted down all the Ashgari who had settled there and killed them all, or chased them off, but definitely tried to kill them all. There's this character I haven't mentioned called Faustin, who was really in the ear of the king throughout the book, and he is Malgassi. And so just, I think that was the work of that ambassador specifically, dressed up. And I also feel like she may have a bit of magic or something. Like, maybe Malgassi wanted the Ashkar out because they had magic, and that's how she pulled this whole thing off. There's a few wild cards on this thing. I didn't want to just go for really obvious options or choices. I wanted to go for what I actually think. I also think this will be an interesting time capsule to see how off I was and how stupid I am. No. What if Lynn and Connor have this really fun dynamic in this book and I just don't know it yet? And so I'll look back on this video going, oh my god, I can't believe you doubted them. So excited for that. Yeah, thank you for watching. Look forward to my February reading review. That's coming pretty soon, I hope. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to ramble and chat about Cassandra Clare books. If you like this video, here's another one that YouTube thinks you would enjoy, and I will see you next time.